And then you also have calcitonin comes from the thyroid gland. It comes from cells called the parafollicular cells, so para around the follicles. They're also called C cells. I don't know why they call them C cells. I always kind of remember parafollicular because it makes sense, around the follicles. When we look at the follicles, what they're going to look like when we magnify it, they're going to be a ring of simple cuboidal epithelia, okay? And that ring of simple cuboidal epithelia, those are the follicular cells. The whole circular part and everything in the middle is the follicle, okay? So again, I'll show you. So these circles that you see, these are follicles, okay? And when we magnify it, you'll be able to see the follicular cells that are making up that circle. Some of the follicles have this sticky material in them called colloid, and some don't. So if you see an empty follicle, it just means that the hormones have been exocytosed recently. Okay. And that's nothing you really need to worry so much about, and just tell you that so you kind of know what you're looking at. Okay. So what I'm going to do is magnify this. It's at 4x right now. I'm going to take it up to 10x. Focus it. And then we still need to take it up higher to be able to see the cells. Okay, so now I'm going to take it up to 40x. 40x will be the highest that we go. So I'm not going to use 100x because we have to use oil at 100x. Okay, so a ring of simple cuboidal epithelia. Okay, simple just means it's a single layer. These just happen to go in a circle instead of being a straight layer. And then the individual cells are cubes. So here's the cell, here's the nucleus in the cell. Here's the cell, here's the nucleus in the cell. Cell, nucleus, so on and so forth. So they're little cubes that are in one single layer. That's a follicular cell. This whole thing is the follicle, okay? T3 and T4 are composed inside of this, okay? This right here are follicular cells. This whole thing here is a follicle, and it's got that colloid in it, okay? Just that sticky material. Then if you look in between the follicles, so for example, let's look here. So here's your simple cuboidal epithelia. Those are your follicular cells. This is a follicle. Over here, simple cuboidal epithelia. That's a follicle. If you look at these cells right here aren't part of this ring of simple cuboidal epithelia. These cells right here aren't part of this ring of simple cuboidal epithelia. Those are parafollicular cells, or C cells. This is where calcitonin's made. Here, and these cells is where T3 and T4 are made, okay? So on your test, I would, point like this and say at the tip of the pointer is what, and then you would choose like follicular cells or follicle. If I have the pointer right in the middle, and then you would choose follicle. And then if I say what hormone is either made here or here, you'd say T3 or T4. That's what you would choose, T3 or T4. If I point to these guys, if I point to these guys, any of these guys in here, any of those guys in there, those would be parafollicular cells or C cells. And that's where calcitonin is made, okay? And then this is a slide of the thyroid gland. That's what you need to know, okay? All right, let me move this slide, and then I'm gonna ask you guys, and then we'll put up the next one. So if on the test I had the pointer here, you would say that is what kind of cell? Parafollicular cell. It makes what? Calcitonin. If I pointed here, you'd say that's a
simple
follicular cell, okay, just follicular cell, or this is a whole thing is called a follicle, and this makes T3 and T4, okay, that's it, all right? Let's put the pancreas up. pancreas has endocrine cells and exocrine cells in it. So it has both. The endocrine cells is where insulin and glucagon are made. And then the exocrine cells is where digestive enzymes are made. And you'll learn about that on your digestive worksheet, your GI worksheet. Which, by the way, I have your case study up, but I don't have, and I extended your case study deadline. I can't remember what deadline I gave it, but I made it for after your tests, okay? Before your final, but after round 2 of tests. I don't have your digestive worksheet up. I still need to do a couple editing things. I'll have it up tomorrow, okay? So, but don't worry about that stuff till you're done with round 2 of tests. Don't even bother with it right now, okay? Focus on round 2 of tests. Okay, let me just see what I've got here. Look at another slide here. Turn on the light real quick. That slide's not too bad, but I think I have a better one. Yeah, this is the better light right here. So, for the endocrine cells in the pancreas, they are called islets or pancreatic islets. And within these islets, you have different cell types. You have alpha cells and beta cells. Now, you're not going to be able to tell an alpha cell from a beta cell, but you should know alphas and betas are in these things called islets that we're going to look at. You should know that the alpha cells make glucagon and the beta cells make insulin, though again, you can't tell an alpha from a beta, but they're both in these things called islets. So I could word it like, you know, I don't know, I could word it such that I wanted you to specifically tell me alpha cells make glucagon, beta cells make insulin, and then I'll show you what these islets look like. The other cells, the exocrine cells, are called acini cells or acinar cells. And that you should know, and they make digestive enzymes. All right, I keep fogging up the lenses here. All right, where are you? Where'd you go? Let me find a good section. Okay, I'm going to take it up to 40x. No, I'm going to take it to 10x and then maybe I'll show you 4x. adjusting. Let's see if you can see that. Let me look at one other slide. This will work if it has to, but I'd rather have something that really pops so you can see it a little bit better. Let me try this one. I think this is the one I like. Okay. Let me just see. Can you see something on here that's quite different in terms of cells? Like not these, something in here? Like you can see this? Can you see those? Those are your islets. Okay, I'm going to show you on this slide too, but while this is up here. So your islets are going to be much fewer in number than the acinar cells are. So the islets are the cells themselves are lighter. They stain lighter, and that's why they kind of pop out at you. So like these guys right here, those are islets, and in here are alpha and beta cells. The other thing about these guys is they tend to have more capillaries around them, and the capillaries just kind of look like these white spaces in there would be the capillaries. And then all these other cells that are around here, these darker staining cells, these are all your acinar cells that are making digestive enzymes. So like that's an islet. Can you see that this is an islet right here too? And then right here. Okay, so that's what you're looking for. So on the test, if I point to this, you're going to choose the option of pancreatic islets, or it might just say alpha and beta cells, one of the two. And then if I say what hormones are made here, you would choose insulin and glucagon, versus if I point to any of these other cells out here. These are acinar cells. They're also called acini cells, so A-C-I-N-I. It's on your lab thing. And these guys make digestive enzymes, not hormones. Okay. All the other stuff that's in here, like these ducts and blood vessels, you don't need to know these. Okay. You just need to know the acini cells or the acinar cells, digestive enzymes, and then the islets, alpha and beta cells, insulin and glucagon. Okay. All right. So then I will pull up the other slide if you can see those. Okay. And I think for this one, I actually think that 10x is better than 40x. When you start to get 40x, it almost is too magnified. So I think that's a good magnification right there. Okay. And then for the adrenal gland. So I'm going to flip on the light for a second and draw a couple things. The adrenal glands are a little tricky. Okay, but what I do is I always look for certain landmarks to help me know what I'm looking at. So first of all, when you look at the adrenal gland, you've got an outer part, which is the cortex, and then the inner part here is the medulla. And then when you look at the gland, there will be a fibrous capsule on the outer part. It's just dense connective tissue. And so you'll kind of see cells or maybe even fibers kind of running like this around it. So I'm going to call that number 1 right there. And then over here I'm going to put fibrous capsule. And then you go into cortex, okay? So then for the cortex, you got 3 different layers of cells in here. So I'm gonna call it 2, 3, 4, okay? Number 2, number 3, and number 4 are all part of the cortex. Number 2, so the first layer of the cortex, okay, that's the zona glomerulosa. And that's the one that makes mineralocorticoids. And the one that we're learning is aldosterone. Okay, I'll come back to that in a second. Number 3, the middle layer of the cortex is called zona fasciculata, and that makes glucocorticoids. And we're learning cortisol. Okay. Then the deepest layer of the cortex is called zona reticularis, and that makes your gonatocorticoids. And we're doing testosterone. And again, you might see it, I probably have it listed also as a type of androgen. And then we'll call the medulla, we'll just call that 5. 5. And then 5 is the adrenal medulla. And the adrenal medulla makes epinephrine and norepinephrine. Okay. Now, if we kept going like this direction, then we would run into 4 again, then 3, then 2, and 1 would be out here. So when we look at these, slides, you're going to see the whole section. All right, you're going to see the whole section from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. Now, when we look at the cortex, okay, zona glomerulosa, the cells are, it's going to be a fairly thin layer, and the cells, so first let's do the fibrous capsule. Fibrous capsule, you'll just see kind of fibers running like this, okay? And then zona glomerulosa, the cells are kind of going to look like they're swirling around like this, okay? It's going to be a layer where the cells kind of look like they're swirling. And always remember that zona glomerulosa is always right underneath the fibrous capsule, okay? So always use that as a point of reference, okay? Fasciculata is going to be the biggest layer of the cortex, and here the cells kind of look like they're in these columns, kind of running up like this. So kind of like that. And then reticularis is always going to be by the medulla. And reticularis, the cells kind of look like they're doing this. They're in like diagonal columns. And then the adrenal medulla is going to stain a different color. So it's usually either more purple to cortex is pink, but it'll be a different color, okay? So this will just be a bunch of cells. Just a bunch of cells. Okay, but the color will be different. So when I look at reticularis, I kind of look for these areas where it kind of looks empty. It just looks like there's some empty spaces in here. And that's just because the cells aren't real densely packed because of the way they're kind of moving at angles. Now, it's not going to be this clear when we pull it up, okay? It's not going to be like, oh, I see swirls, or oh, I see these beautiful columns. It's not going to look like that. But the more you look at it, the more you'll start to see this. So when I show you the slide on the test, I will always make sure, if I have it up at 40, I will always make sure that you can either see the capsule as a point of reference or the medulla as a point of reference. So always make sure you can see one or the other, okay? If I have it on 10x, then I could show you all of that. But if I have it at 40x, you can't see all of it. So then I'd either make sure you can see this or this, one of the two. So you have a point of reference. Always, what's by the capsule is zona glomerulosa. What's by the medulla is reticularis, and then fasciculata is in between, okay? So let's look at it. gonna show it to you at 10x first, and then I'm gonna take it up to 40x. It's at 4x right now, so I'm gonna take it up. So just at this point right here, you can tell that this is the what?
Medulla.
That's the medulla, okay? So it's not always gonna be purple, but it'll definitely be different than this. It typically is purple, okay? But it definitely will be a different color than up here. And again, it usually is purple. All right, let me pull this. It started at edge. And this slide's actually not so bad. Let me just see what it looks like at 10x here. Okay, so I'm either gonna show it to you at 4x or 10x, not 40x. Let's do it at 4x and then we'll go up to 10x. 40x is too magnified. So all this stuff up here is just connective tissue, and then here is your fibrous capsule. See how everything's kind of running this direction right here? That's your fibrous capsule. This is just some adipose and some other just connective tissue, loose connective tissue that's around it. And depending on the slide, you may or may not see all this loose connective tissue, but the capsule is this right here, okay? Then underneath the capsule, we start in on cortex, and zona glomerulosa is this part right here. So again, to me, it kind of looks like the cells are kind of swirling around like this. Okay, so this is zona glomerulosa. And then we go into this section where it just, to me, looks like a bunch of cells. So from about here to, probably right here. That's zona fasciculata, this right here. Okay, and then I'm gonna have to scoot it up, but you can start to see down here, you can start to see some empty spaces in here. And that's because down here we're getting into reticularis, where the cells aren't quite as dense anymore. So I'm gonna scoot it up. Okay, so let's do this again. So we got fibrous capsule, zona glomerulosa, fasciculata is all of this. It's a big layer, fasciculata. Then here, you can see where you've got spaces between the cells. That's reticularis. There's your medulla right there. So this slide actually isn't too bad. Can you see those different layers? Yeah.
I was gonna ask a favor. You think you can pull the screen back up and write on the whiteboard? You think it could
Right on the whiteboard?
Yeah,
See.
it should slow transit over there.
Yeah.
I thought that could kind of be helpful.
So that's your capsule. Zona glomerulosa. And then, let's see, let's do this, let's go like that, let's go like that. So this would be medulla down here. This right here would be zona reticularis. Yeah, this is a great idea. I can't believe I've never done this. This is a really good idea. And this right here would be zona fasciculata. And then we'll magnify it and we can do the same thing.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, it's a great idea. So again, for something like this at 4x, what are we at, 4x? 4x. Then I could show you, you could see all of this. But again, always just use your capsule as a point of reference. Right underneath is glomerulosa, right by the medulla is reticularis, and then kind of no man's land here is fasciculata. And where I would put the pointer is always in the middle of the layer. So I put it here, I put it here, I put it there, and then there. I will avoid putting it at transition points, okay, and stick it right in the middle, okay? Okay, so then let's pop it up to 40x and do the same thing. Okay, I'll erase that in a second. I'm gonna come back down. Okay, so then let's erase this. Then we've got, we're gonna have to draw and erase a couple times for this one. So here's your capsule. And then, probably like right around here, that is zona glomerulosa. So mineralocorticoids like aldosterone from here. Okay. And then we'll scoot it up in a second. Okay. So I'm gonna erase that. Okay. Capsule, zona glomerulosa, and then this is all fasciculata in here. So now fasciculata, zona glomerulosa, and capsule. This is aldosterone, and this is cortisol. And then we'll move it up until we can see the medulla. And we'll do the same thing. Okay. This. Just keep moving it up. So fasciculata. Now we're just starting to see reticularis in there. There's reticularis. There we go. So for this, I would make sure that you saw this. So here's your medulla. Then reticularis is probably somewhere in there. Testosterone. Medulla is going to be norepinephrine and epinephrine. And then this is zona fasciculata. And that's cortisol. Okay. So always make sure you have at least one point of reference with the capsule or the medulla or both. Okay. Okay, that's it. Those are your slides. All right? Okay. So not too bad. And they're multiple choice. Did you guys decide on a review session? Sunday? Okay. What time on Sunday?